Life can throw us some unbelievable, unexpected curveballs. And coach, our conversation today with Deb is so eye-opening because she's had some of these curveballs and she's approached them with such authenticity and grace.
Yeah, for sure, John. And I really like the thought process of being intentional when you have curveballs thrown at you to develop a resilience plan. So think about how you can be more resilient in your life.
3 cancer diagnoses and some amazing tips coming up with Deb Krier. Let's get into it.
This is the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where Coach and John learn along with you from some of the world's most decorated leaders. Recently promoted, let's sharpen the saw together.
I'm really excited for our guest this month. I had the honor to be on her show, and now she is reciprocating. This is Deb Krier, and Deb is a seasoned entrepreneur, cancer advocate. She combines her business acumen and lived experiences and certification as integrative cancer coach to support high-performing professionals through one of life's most disruptive challenges. With more than 2 decades of experience in communication and marketing and public relations, Deb has guided large corporations, small businesses, and nonprofits. But most of all, her powerful work began after her life threw her a curveball and following a diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer in 2015. She has now bounced back and she's got a lot to share with us. So without any further ado, Deb Krier, welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you, John. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm very honored to be your guest.
Thank you. We're really looking forward to it. You know what? Because we want to help younger leaders, and we got a lot of things we want to discuss, but we're going to delve in because I know the first part of your career, you spent a lot of time, and I know you still work with helping people with communication skills. We're trying to help young and emerging leaders. So if you had 3 pieces of advice that you would share with a young leader to help them be a more effective communicator, what would those 3 pieces be?
Thank you. It's a great question and one that is obviously a challenge for many people. One of the things I tell people is more. Now, I don't mean TMI, right? But sometimes as a leader, we don't communicate. We think, oh, they know what's going on. They don't need to know. And the issue then becomes the fact that if we're not given enough information as a client, as an employee, as whoever, we make it up. And we almost never make it up. And so it's okay to tell people more. The second thing is it's also okay to tell people, I don't know. I don't know that answer. But then you want to follow it up with, I'll get it for you, or I'll tell you when I can. And that's especially important when there's something maybe traumatic, challenging that's going on in the business. Just ignoring it and putting your head in the sand is not going to help. But it's okay to tell people, I don't know. You're human. It really is okay, as long as you're not hiding something. Now, obviously, there are times where you cannot disclose and things like that. But yeah, it's okay to tell people, we'll get you the information when we can. And the third is really let people know that you want communication to be a two-way street. It's not just, I'm going to lecture you. I want to know what you're thinking also. And so what that's going to do is encouraging people to tell the good, the bad, the ugly. That's okay. Don't ignore them, or worse, don't even make it a situation where they can give you criticism or negative comments. It's okay. Don't punish them. Don't use it against them. But you want that feedback because your people that are on the ground working, they're going to have the best information, and you want to encourage them in an open way to be able to provide you with that information.
Yeah. It's often said that God will never give you more than you can handle, Deb.
Right.
And that must mean that you can handle a lot because 3 cancer diagnoses. Tell us the story about your stage 4 cancer and then a couple other cancers that you had to go through and how now that's turned you into a cancer coach.
There are times where I'm like, God, really? Seriously? But yeah, a little over 10 years ago, I was doing my annual checkup, just like we're all supposed to do. And my mammogram came back as having an issue. And so I had another mammogram, and I was diagnosed with microcalcifications. Now, many years ago, maybe before you were even born, John. I worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. And so I know just enough to be dangerous. But I didn't know what microcalcifications were. So I asked Dr. Google, and I tell people it is not really a good thing. But I discovered that women of a certain age, as the hormones in our bodies change, we get these microcalcifications. And obviously, the vast majority of the time, it's not an issue. For me, because I'm special, they had started to coalesce and form things. These were still so small that the computer saw them. Now, mind you, this is really before AI, but the computer was able to see them. So at that point, I was diagnosed with stage 0. Didn't get an oncologist. I did get a surgeon. And after several months of some testing that really didn't show too much, we finally did a little bit more invasive surgery and discovered that 8 of 12 lymph nodes were positive for cancer. So I went from stage 0 to stage 3, just boop, right, yeah. Got the oncologist, and she immediately walked me through the various options. Now, I decided to do the traditional approach. I tell people you need to do what's going to work best for you, but I was going to do chemo, surgery, radiation. My first chemo just about killed me. I ended up in the hospital for 7 weeks in septic shock. And that was quite the bumpy road. It was rather challenging, but multiple surgeries, and the septic shock has done far more damage to my body than the cancer ever did. Wow. Obviously got over that. I had surgery, had radiation, was sailing merrily along. Now, we did try chemo one more time, and I had the exact same reaction. It was very strange, and it is very unusual. At the point where I had the reaction, according to my oncologist, I was the only person that had ever survived it, because you didn't recognize what was going on until it was too late. But she had another patient die from it, so she knew what it was. But yeah, so I was going along. I worked almost the entire time. I owned my own company, gave me something to think about. And so I was doing that. One of my checkups, but in there, I said, I got a rib that hurts on the bad side. And so they did a bone biopsy. That's a really fun test. And it's a drill. It's not a needle, it's a drill. And it came back as inconclusive. So it wasn't okay, but it wasn't ick. And so at that point, my doctor said, okay, we're going to call it stage 4. And so it's stage 4, triple positive, which is actually fairly rare, triple positive metastatic breast cancer. But yeah, just kept going merrily along. Somewhere along in there, I told one of my doctors, hey, I've got this funny little sore on my arm that won't heal. I was at the dermatologist the next day. Now, the really funny thing was I am this redheaded, freckly kid from Colorado who had never been to a dermatologist. And I know, one of those things. But I had been diligent, and I knew I didn't have any issues. He diagnosed basal cell carcinoma, which that out of everything, I think that sounds the worst. That's your basic skin cancer. He didn't even take a stitch. He just burned it off. But now I get to go in to see him every 6 months. And then it's been about 3 years ago, I was having a follow-up test for the breast cancer, just regular checkup. Then they said everything is fine there, but you've got a lesion on your thyroid. So went in and discovered that I had 2. I had one on either side. Your thyroid gland actually wraps around your vocal cords. And I had a cancerous lesion on both sides. And it is a third diagnosis. It's not a spread of the original cancer. So I've had 3 totally separate diagnoses. They removed my thyroid, but we caught it so early that I didn't have to have any treatment for it. I still go in for treatment. In fact, tomorrow is one of my treatment days. And, you just keep going along.
I got to delve into, let's dig into because obviously those are some major challenges. As leaders, we do run into health issues. How do you continue to run a business when you're going through this type of health challenge?
The first is to decide, are you going to? Right? Because it depends. You might say, nope, I'm going to focus on myself. And that in many ways depends on what is really happening. I tell people I was able to work almost the whole time because I just need Wi-Fi. And anymore, hospitals and doctors' offices have really good Wi-Fi. And so I sit there on my phone or with my laptop and I just keep working. But that is the first decision. Are you going to continue working? And then the next decision is, what are you going to do about it? Who are you going to tell? And so many people think, I can't tell anybody, because they're going to think, I can't do my job. I can't run my company. I can't run my department. And It is obviously a very personal choice as to how much you tell and who you tell. But it comes back to what we were talking about at the very start. If you don't tell something and people notice that something's going on, they will start making it up. They might notice that you're looking a little rough. And so then, oh, maybe you have a drinking problem or things like that. And now you certainly don't have to tell in great detail. But if you say, John, coach, I've got some health issues I'm dealing with. I will keep you posted as with the information you need, but I'm going to need your help. And if you have employees that don't step up, you got a different problem. But yeah, so just tell them what's going on. Of course, my challenge, because I am a solopreneur, is what and how to tell my clients. And that really that's a big thing. And again, whether you're a solopreneur or you've got lots of clients, how do you tell them? I decided to be very open and tell mine. And I knew I was running a risk. They might have very well said, we know you can't do the work, so go away. Or they could have said, you need to focus on yourself, please. Or they did what mine did, because I was very lucky. And they said, what can we do to help? All my clients, they were just across the board, what can we do to help? And they still know that a couple times every 21 days, I'm down for the count for several days when I have treatment. But other than that, I'm just working. And so it really is a challenge, though, if you're running a business. And then, of course, you've got that little thing called your family, probably. And so trying to mix all of them in there. And one of the things, and it doesn't matter what, but when you're first diagnosed with cancer, you feel out of control. And so what can you do? And so many people, they choose to focus on their business because they can control that, things like that. But yeah, it really is. It's a big challenge when you are trying to run a business as to how you're going to deal with it when you're sick.
Yeah. And you mentioned communication being so important in leadership, especially when you're going through something like this. What are some of the benefits of you mentioned that it's okay to conceal some information. You don't have to be totally open about it all. But what are some of the benefits to just being totally authentic and being an open book, so to speak, about something like a cancer diagnosis?
Yeah. If you're a huge company, you have shareholders and things like that. There's laws and things where you have to disclose and things like that. And so I'm talking more about smaller to mid-sized companies. One of the things that I think is a great benefit, and I had to learn this, was the words delegation and empower, right? You have hired great employees, VAs, whatever you've got, because they are knowledgeable, they are talented, and they are skilled. So let them do that. Give them that power and show them that you trust them, that you have faith, that they will be able to take care of things. And the goal then is, of course, that carries over. When you are feeling good and back to good health, you still want those people to know that they are an important part of your company and you trust them to do a great job.
I got to ask you this. You brought up, and it was actually something I jotted because I think it's something that young leaders really struggle with, and that's delegation. They feel like he or she should do it all by themselves. So, again, I guess I love the magic number 3. So I'll ask you, what would be 3 keys that you would share with people to help them be better with delegation?
It's hard. And not only am I the redhead kid, I'm a type A. And so delegation is really a challenge for me. And I think the first thing to realize is somebody else can do the job. And more importantly, they might do it better.
Yeah.
And that's okay. One of the other fears with delegation is they might go, oh, we really don't need you.
Right.
And I think that really is one of the biggest things that people think about is, okay, then that frees you up to do something else. And that's okay too. And delegating again comes back to that empowering. You are showing them that you trust them and that you know that they're going to do a great job. Now, don't just throw them off the diving board into the deep end. You still want to be there as much as you can. But once you've said, hey, I trust this task to you, don't micromanage them. You trust them, so let them do it. Step in if needed, but more than likely, if you've hired great people, you're not going to need to do that.
Now, you approach your life, it seems. I don't know if this is totally true because we don't know each other super well, but you approach things like cancer and difficult circumstances with there's a lightheartedness to you. There's almost sense of humor to you. Where does that come from? And how can that help people who are going through these struggles?
I've definitely had bad times every day. There are times where I'm like, really? Like I said, really, God? But, and one of the first things I told my doctor was, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this. And she just kind of looked at me like, what? But I've always been the wiseacre. But there are physical and emotional benefits to laughter and things like that. And so I think that's one of the things that is very important to remember is changes chemicals in your body. And the funny thing is you can fake laughing. They do things like laughter yoga and things. And your brain doesn't know you're not laughing for real. And so it will release endorphins and things like that. The weird thing is your blood pressure actually goes down. And so humor is really good. I try really hard to make all my medical team laugh. I'm at a doctor pretty much every week because I have a bunch. And I try to make them laugh because they have hard jobs. Some of them have really hard jobs. So if I can make them laugh, I'm going to make them laugh. And they know if I'm coming in and I'm serious, I'm probably not feeling good or there's something that's going on. But yeah, it really is, how can we bring humor into this situation? And sometimes it has gotten me into trouble. I was laughing so much and joking right before one surgery that they just knocked me out early. They were tired of it. I was like, walk. And it was like, okay. But yeah, it helps lighten the mood. And be serious when you need to be serious. But if you can, laugh about it. And watch things on TV. I love Lucy. I'm a big fan of Big Bang Theory. Whatever it is, sometimes maybe you can read, you can watch comedy, all those things to lighten your mood and try and make things a little bit better.
That's a
Well,
good one.
I ask you about when I was reading about you and learning about you, there's something that really jumped out to me because I'm a big in doing intentional plans. Like I think people should have an intentional growth plan and a intentional wellness plan. But yours was really neat. And I guess I understand it to a certain degree, but I'd like you to tell us more about building a resilience plan.
Resilience is obviously so important and so critical through this. And it is how you are going to get through it. What are the things that you're going to do in order to get through? And it can be a variety of things: exercise, eat, laughing, all of those various things. And the funny thing, I don't really do anything deliberate. It's just, I've said it several times, you just keep going. And I think one of the important things about resilience, though, is to have the right people around you who are supporting you. I like to say that I am a cancer warrior, and I know not everybody likes that term, but I'm fighting for my life. And so I am a warrior or a thriver. You call me a patient, and I'm probably going to make a face at you. But no warrior stands alone. A warrior always has a tribe. And sports analogy, the quarterback has people backing him up. The pitcher has people. Even if you're in a solitary sport like golf, you still have people who you are working with. And so I think it's very important to get the right people around you who are going to give you the support that you need. And sometimes that means getting rid of people. I have bid adieu to several doctors during this process. Didn't mean they were bad doctors. It just meant they weren't part of my team. We weren't clicking. I had one doctor, you gentlemen will love this. He shook his finger at me and he told me to be quiet.
No.
That's not good.
That did not go over well.
Not at all.
And I got it. I was jibber jabbering, but it was like, no. And actually I was just trying to give him my history and he wasn't wanting to hear that. And he needed to know my history. He needed to know what was going on. But yeah, build that team around you. And it changes as you go through this process. And make sure that you've got the people that are really going to help you through this.
I get delve a little deeper because I'm right with you 100%. The team around you, the people, I used to always remind our players that the people that you hang the most are either really helping your life or hindering. So give us some advice on getting the right people on your team. Because obviously a lot of people don't bring the right people on their team and it leads to struggles. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think the first thing to remember is you are in charge. Not your doctors, not anybody else. You are the person in charge. And if you are not able to be, then you need a good second. Obviously, mine was my husband. And so do that. But I think one of the things that surprised me were the people that dropped off. There were several that when they found out I had cancer, and some I had known for 40, 50 years, nope, they were gone. And I don't know if it was their own, and I mean, I was not giving them lots and lots of detailed information. It was just, hey, going through this. I don't know if it was the fear of their own mortality or quite what, but the friendship was over, obviously. And that was okay. There were people who stepped up who totally surprised me. I mean, some people I didn't even think knew I existed. One of the things, people sent me gifts. It was the sweetest thing in the world. I still have them all. And one person who, she's a Facebook friend, don't really know her all that much. I got a handmade teddy bear. And it's the cutest thing. I have to keep it where my dogs, my cats can't get near it. But the note that came with it said, "My church choir prayed over this before we sent it."
Wow.
And see, I have chills right now. And that meant the world to me. And so be open to that. But one of the big things is it is okay to say, go away. Like I said, there are 3 doctors that I said, nope, One was the first surgeon who saved my life. He literally saved my life. But that man was much better with people who were unconscious. When he had to talk to me, he was not good at it. And I was not going to deal with him. But always remember that you have to be your own advocate. You have to step up. You have to say, here's what's going on. I have these questions. In my oncologist office, in every single room, the patient room, there is a sign that says, "Do not leave this room if your questions have not been answered." And there have been times where I've called them back. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's okay. And it depends on the doctors. My endocrinologist for my thyroid, he's very good at text messaging. So if I've got a question for him, he'll respond within a couple hours. It's amazing. But yeah, you are the person in charge. You're the team captain. You are the quarterback. Take this back. You're the coach. And you are the person who is in charge. But it's all about building that right team and warmly wishing those adieu who need to go away.
You mentioned something really important, talking about mortality. So for young and emerging leaders, this is something where we get promoted. Maybe we're 30 years old, say. The last thing we're thinking about is dying. It's like, do we feel invincible? We just got this great promotion and now we're leading a team. We're not thinking about our own mortality. But when something like cancer comes about, or even someone who's diagnosed with cancer, or any reminder like that, there's mortality. My question for you is, how much of a benefit is it to focus on your mortality to keep everything in perspective, or distract yourself from the reality of mortality by continuing to keep yourself distracted through things like work?
I think it needs to be a combination. I mentioned that I'm type A, right? I don't care what age you are. Once you're over 18, you should probably have a will, even if it's the one-page thing that you got off the internet that says mom and dad get everything, a medical power of attorney. I think that's very important to have. And again, you can get all these things on the internet that are pretty easy to do. And just go through all of those things. As a business, do you have things like a business continuity plan? If something were to happen to you, or heaven forbid, you go on vacation, do people know where your bank is? Who can sign checks? Who's your corporate attorney? Who's your vendor for things? All of those various things. And don't have it in your head, because you're not going to be there. You need to have it written down and be thinking about what could happen. I am, and I always have been, the person who operates on the hit by a bus theory, where if something happens to me, could someone else pick up immediately and go on? And I've always been like that. But operate like that. Don't dwell on it though, because it does get scary. And so just be prepared. But one of the things that I really started doing is, we talk about our bucket lists, right? When I retire, I'm going to do this, or all those various things. Don't put things off, because you don't know what's going to happen, and do those things early. And because you can add to it, right? Just because you accomplish some of the stuff doesn't mean that you're not going to have more. So it's okay to get those things accomplished. I tell people, I don't want my headstone to say, I wish I would have. And so, yeah, just do a little planning And once you've got it planned, then you're done. You have to update it, especially if you're young. You might have kids. You might need to do some things where you're planning for them. And then those kids get older and you don't really need a guardian for them, things like that. Or you might have selected a guardian that's no longer able to do that. So make sure that all of those things are current. But yeah, once you've got it done, don't worry about it. But yeah, make sure that your business is capable of functioning without you.
You mentioned a word a little back, and I'm always curious because I do a lot of leadership presentations, and something I asked the people in the room, how important is building trust? And 100% they say is very important. So my question to you is, what suggestions would you give people to build trust, whether it's with your team, your customers, or clients? Give us some thoughts on
I
that.
think first you have to be trustworthy. It's like you have respect, you have to have, and yeah, if they can't trust you, then they're not going to do things to let you trust them. So make sure that you're trustworthy. Back to communication. Tell them what you can, when you can, and don't be lying to them. I long ago I worked in corporate America, and we went through some big corporate mergers, and we had people who flat out lied.
Mm.
No, you're not going to lose your job. They knew people were going to lose their job. And once that trust is gone and that respect, you probably cannot get it back. And even if it's having to be tough, Coach, I know you've really had to do that. When you've had to tell kids who it is their dream to play, and you have to tell them, I'm sorry, you can't. But then you kept them posted. I love your story. It's so great. And so, yeah, just you cannot trust people until they can trust you first. And just, I think that's the way it's just got to be.
Yeah, communication in leadership is, I believe, a skill that can be developed. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not a good public speaker. That's an important skill, but that's not all communication and leadership is. What are some things we can do to actively practice our communication as a leader?
There are classes you can take. I'm big on Toastmasters. Actually, I've been to Toastmasters, but I've not been a member of Toastmasters. But yeah, that's a great way. And one thing to remember is whether you're presenting to a team of 10 people or 1,000, the concepts are the same. And don't do the things like, oh, imagining them in their underwear or whatever. No, because that's never works. But be prepared. And now, don't read your notes. That's the worst thing, to read your notes. But yeah, you can practice it and practice in the mirror. That's a good place. I know a realtor who he calls every one of his clients, past, current, and hopefully future. He calls them every quarter. And he stands when he does it because it brings a different energy, and he's looking in a mirror. So he knows he's smiling. And so even though it's over the phone, he knows that is how he is presenting. And remember, we all get afraid. I remember a long time ago, I heard Barbara Streisand doing an interview, and she said, how many thousands of times has she performed? She still throws up before she goes on stage. Now, part of that's good. That gets your adrenaline up. You don't want to be throwing up. But it's still, she's very nervous right before she starts. And I think when we're not nervous, sometimes that shows too. Our energy level goes down. And there's things like power poses and music. I'm a big fan of putting on some inspirational music. For others, it's going to be the exact opposite. They need the quiet time. They need to maybe say a prayer. And always remember, they're just people too. It really, but yeah, if you are uncomfortable with it, there's some classes you can take. A lot of them are online, and just get a little bit more comfortable with speaking in public.
I got to share one thing, Deb, and is that a few years ago I was speaking to a construction company, and the CEO spoke before me, and it was amazing because we talked about preparation. He had a PowerPoint. The unfortunate thing is he turned and read every slide. Oh my God, I was like, if I can't do better than him, it's like, but people, just a little sidelight, because in fact, I speak to John's class every year on how to be a more powerful presenter. And I always tell them that the PowerPoint should be something that enhances your presentation, not be your presentation. Because so many people think when I plan a PowerPoint, that's it.
And what happens if your PowerPoint doesn't work.
Doesn't
Oh
work.
yeah, we've had that happen in time.
Yeah, very much. You got to be able to do it. In fact, that's a great point that you should be able to do your presentation without the PowerPoint, so that the PowerPoint is just an enhancer. So, in wrapping up, my final question for you is I had the honor to be on your Business Power Hour. Tell us a little bit about the show and what benefits people would get from listening to it.
Thank you. And you were a fabulous guest. We had so much fun. As we record this, your episode went live, I believe, last week.
Yeah.
And I started a very long time ago. I actually started by going into a radio station and recording it there. So pre-podcasting. Just yesterday, I recorded episode 1151.
Wow.
And I still have so much fun doing it. It really is, for me, it's not monetized. That's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it to have great conversation. And my goal is that I learn something from my guests. And so if I'm learning something, hopefully my listeners are also.
We have similar missions with our podcast, although we're only at 250. So you are way ahead of us. But how often do you release, Deb?
We do 2 a week, so that does bump it up a little bit more. Yeah. But yeah, and the cool thing is technology, right? Like I said, originally I had to go into a radio station. My guest had to come into the radio station. Now this was Denver, that was okay. But then I moved and still was tied to that radio station. So I used Skype. That was okay, unless technology would fail. And then when Zoom and being able to pre-record, oh, that's the best thing in the world, because we can have guests from around the world. And there's obviously a lot of different technologies now that you can use, but it's so much fun to be able to talk to people from around the world about whatever you want to talk to them about.
Yeah, perfect said. And I know you're also part of Trying Not to Die Live. We're really the visionary force behind that, as you say in your bio. So tell us more about that.
So it's Trying Not to Die .live, because we're living our life. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, not a problem. So the name came about because of my mother. I'm an only child. And of course, when I was so very ill, she came out. And I got one of the times when a medical team came and went, she made a face at me and I went, ugh. And she said, "You did not say thank you." And I said, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die." But when my business coach pushed me into doing this and forming this support system, it occurred to me that we get so caught up in trying to not die, whether we have cancer or not, that we forget that we have to live. And it is so important to be living our life, whether it's 5 hours or 50 years. How are we going to live? And so Trying Not to Die is primarily for people who are on a cancer journey, either themselves or with family member, friend, coworker, things like that. And it's just a place for support and inspiration and some resources.
Wow. How good is that? I got to say that I was just reading about this, actually. The idea that we are built to survive. Right. That's the way that we're wired. So really, everything that we're trying to do in life is to lean towards survival. So that's so true. That what are we all doing? Whether our death is imminent or possible or not, we're trying not to die. What other ways can that phrase also be implemented into, say, business?
I think it is, from a business perspective, don't be complacent. Just because you had a good quarter or bad quarter, keep going. Always be learning new technology. AI is, to me, one of the greatest things in the world, right? But how can you continue moving your business forward until it reaches a point where maybe it's time for it to go into a different type of thing? But yeah, how are you going to lead your business, and how are you going to make sure that your business is always continuing to move forward? And now, that said, there are times we go backwards, but it's okay. Then pause, think about it, figure out, did I do something wrong? Do I need to fix something? Maybe I don't have the right people around me, whatever it is, but then move forward. And our businesses are living organizations, right? And living organisms. We all think of, especially if we're the founder, it's our baby. And so how are you going to make sure that it lives?
Trying Not to Die .live. That's Deb Krier, or Krier. I'm sorry, Deb Krier. This is really a fun conversation and so cool. I really am inspired by your journey and what you do as an integrative cancer coach as well. So what are the best ways we can get in touch with you, listen to the podcast, learn more about what you do?
So Trying Not to Die.live is the website for that. YourCancerCoach.live is the integrative cancer coach. You can find me on social. Now, I am only on Facebook and on LinkedIn. because I could go onto Twitter and TikTok and be watching cat videos all day. I'm like,
I'm with
no,
you.
let's just not go there. But you can easily find me. I believe there are only 3 Deb Kriers in the entire world. And if you Google me, I will come up high on the list because of 1,000 and some podcasts, and then probably 200 where I've been a guest. And so I'm going to come up much higher. So find me, connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Facebook. More than happy to do that.
Deb
Well,
Krier
thank
and
you, Deb.
trying
We
not to
really,
die. Dot
yeah,
live.
we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your inspiration and insights, and we look forward to continuing our journey together and following each other's work. It was a real honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, gentlemen.